What popular thing needs to die? Glorifying any kind of bad or red flag behaviors as some kind of trophy, or better or tougher than you, including the sleep deprivation stuff. I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. Anxiety meds? Heck, I just take a shot, grow a pair, and go on. Welcome to the real world. You think you've got it bad. Blah blah blah. I finally managed to get my own personal revenge on this here recently, and it felt glorious. I was assigned a work cell phone finally, and literally less than a month of having it, I've begun to receive phone calls from robocallers on my personal phone. I let those calls go unanswered or block them, but not the work cell. Oh no, those I'm joyously answering and even pressing 1 to connect to an operator. When they connect and begin their quick spiel without letting me say anything, I politely wait and then say, "Yes, you've reached the insert state government department here. Can I help you?" Both times so far, the caller was obviously shitting themselves and couldn't end the call fast enough. I'm sure the number was blacklisted in their system instantly as government number. Do not call, delete. Gave me no end of joy to do that too. Similarly, parents who think it's funny to video record their child recovering from anesthesia, when it's natural for them to be delirious, panicking, and hyper-emotional, then sending it to Ellen fucking DeGeneres. I find it so disgusting parents would do this, at a time when their children are most vulnerable and need constant care after a physically traumatic event like surgery. These are your children. Put down the camera. I guarantee you no child will see that video and go, "Oh, I'm glad all my friends and schoolmates will get to see this." Posting these videos publicly, I'm just going to call it what it is parents bullying their own children. They just don't know it's bullying because so many other parents do it, because a lot of parents are oblivious to the very concept of parents bullying their children, and they figure that since it's their own child making them laugh that it's okay, despite the child having no feasible way to approve or discourage anything happening at that moment. And if we want to see this disgusting trend gone, disgusting people like Ellen need to stop giving it spotlight. A while ago I had occasion to sort through a bunch of medical trade publications from the early 90s and earlier, before pharmaceutical companies could advertise to people directly. Ads in the doctor magazines were way different. Turns out when you're advertising medicines to regular people, it's all athletic older people hiking in mountains and biking and kayaking and stuff. When you're advertising medicines to doctors, it's a lot more. Here's a 6-page technical breakdown of what this substance actually is and what it does on a molecular level, and prescribe this medicine if you want to reduce nausea in patients who experience extreme nausea as a symptom of this one specific disease. I remember telling this manager who was salary, I was hourly, who ran my department, that I made more than him. Long story short, company, Albertsons, ran itself to the ground. Sold to equity company, worked the shit out of us to make us seem profitable, sold us to competition, Publix. Publix fired all employees in favor of their own. We were at stage 3 and I showed my manager the math that, on an hour basis, I made more than him. He turned to a citizen in the movie Dark City. He rolled an apostrophe T ... couldn't accept that basic fact was reality. It was sad to see. He was a good guy. I didn't tell him this to brag. I told him so he'd realize the company was screwing him. He worked himself hard until, like me, we got laid off. This was an FL and the governor did everything possible to prevent us from collecting unemployment. I heard rumors his wife with his 2 kids left him for a guy that had a job. Same thing happened to me but with girlfriend. Lack of stringent term limits, everywhere on everything. Also, some things need to be elected rather than appointed so people can stop simply appointing their buddies. And other things really should not be elected, such as coroners, and should have some serious credentials that matter required unique to the positions. I'd also argue the fact sheriffs can be elected is problematic. Basically, executive-type managers should be elected, and then they should be required to appoint other positions that are for specific functions in ways that the appointed person fits required relevant credentials for the position. I feel like it doesn't so much need to die. but to evolve. I like how Gordon Ramsay puts it. The customer is the most important person to the business. It's the same vein of logic but more refined into what it really stands for. Ramsay has kicked out his fair share of customers for being wrong or upsetting other guests with their rude behavior. But in the grand scheme, customers as a whole are the most important person to the business, so as a group gathering feedback and criticism is extremely valuable. What is the backstory here, other than I assume parents exploiting a kid? I've seen the toys at Target and that is all I know. Edit to clarify, exploiting kids for likes is abhorrent but unfortunately common. Question is mostly about why several people have mentioned Ryan's World specifically. Did something happen recently? This phrase has two meanings and one is perfectly okay. Their worst is just being an asshole. Wrong, not okay. 2. Their worst being a really bad time in their life and they depressed and weak. If you can't handle helping and being with someone at their worst, you don't deserve them at their best. Sadly, most people refer to the number one part of this phrase. I feel like a broken record saying this all the time to my friends. They agree with me that the remade movies suck. Then they're like, "Ooh, did you see they are remaking such and promptly go out to see it opening night followed by bitching about it," and I'm like, "Oh what, that movie wasn't as good as the original, I never would have imagined." Stop buying tickets to these pieces of shit, people, and they will stop making them. I think there is a balance. I think part of the reason that teens are going crazy with it so early is because it's such a taboo to the older generations, either parents, whereas households that let their kids try alcohol in a controlled setting usually raise well-adjusted adults with healthy relationships to these substances. Source: me. The worst party animal I know was the valedictorian of our high school. His mom had him on a 2-inch leash 24/7. Social media isn't the cause, but it certainly accelerates the process of rebellion. I mean, look at the 80s era. You don't think the long-haired rockers were trying coke? Everyone was doing it. No social media then. Social media actually appears to be having the opposite effect. Gen Z drinks less as teenagers than millennials did. Drinking is just a concept that has always permeated teen subculture, I think. Everyone just talked about it all the time when I was in high school. We didn't need outside forces influencing us to do it. And now I'm seeing teenagers, about 14 plus, posting online with whoops and jahls. I blame social media. As someone in their 40s, this is not new at all, at least in the US. The 90s were full of underage drinking and knowing which places wouldn't card minors. For kids in the rural areas, there was often fuck else to do, especially if you weren't fond of the church. Dazed and Confused, about teens partying in the 70s, was practically a documentary, and drinking and smoking are way down compared to what they were in the 80s and 90s. Pretending to have seizures in public is a joke. That shit is incredibly insensitive and desensitizes people for it when a real person with real epileptic seizures has a grand mal seizure in public. These kids obviously either have never witnessed a real seizure, don't know anyone that suffers from them, or simply don't know how paralyzing and life-consuming epilepsy can be. Giving homeless and poor people money and things just so you can record it on camera. Same goes with those who record big tips they give to waitresses and fast food workers just to videotape their reaction. No, it's not generosity, it's vanity. If it was about generosity, you wouldn't want to record it and put it on your social media. Also Keurig in particular. Hell, disposal culture in general. Really, why the hell does everything need to be plastic? I understand glass is harder to ship, but it's also infinitely easier to recycle, and last I checked there isn't a shortage of it. Aluminum and tin cans are also way the hell better. Bonus, none of this microbeating the entire ocean shit. So, okay, some products should be in plastic, but why the fuck are we not exclusively using polymer? Number 1 and number 2, these are the only ones that can be recycled, reused, for 99% of things. This is, IMO, one of those things that we were doing better at in the first half of the 1900s than we are now. Milk came in glass, condiments came in glass, or tin, soda came in glass, etc. etc. The 5-day, work at the office, business casual that includes a tie for some fucking reason, guilt you out of vacation or sick leave bullshit American office culture. Fuck you. Pay them more and let them work from home. There is no reason for 90% of America's workforce to be in some cubicle farm contributing to global warming and some div research holding a swipes ego. iPhones. But only when you pick one cause everyone else has one. I hate when people say you're poor, you have an Android. It makes me so mad at the Apple cult that sadly exists. I picked my phone because it was the best for me, not at all because of how much money I have. I could have gotten an iPhone should I have wanted to. If you have a reason for having one, awesome. But I don't like how people fanboy it because their friends have one. It's an unpopular opinion though, so I'm ready to be downvoted. The polarization of opinions or subjects. Especially in politics, you don't have to have a concrete objectionable view about everything. It's okay to play with nuance and wait for a better understanding of something to unfold and reveal itself to you. Nobody retains the right to corner your worldview and then box it up, label it, and put it on a specific shelf that gets treated a certain way based on an initial observation of how you think on one given day. We require fluidity of thought in order to grow properly. That's the only way to come up with pragmatic solutions to complex problems. I read a pretty good article in The Atlantic that equates the worst part of cancel culture to the scarlet letter. People change, and we need to allow them to. We can't give people permanent marks. I don't expect most people to change anything other than their behavior, but that's pretty important nonetheless. I think cancel culture is something shared by few. I don't think it's an epidemic. I also think that most people who use the term try to shield from accountability. But still, there is a problem among some who take accountability to the extremes with life sentences. I don't think that someone like Al Franken was subject to unreasonable punishment. For example, he is a man who had power and could withstand the changes caused by losing his seat in Congress. Saying that his life is ruined would be hyperbole and a disservice to the people he hurt. I also think that the fallout for doing fucked up and selfish things helps society modify behavior. If it isn't socially acceptable, and if there are consequences, fewer people get hurt. We don't need to give people a life sentence, but we do need to make the consequences bigger than the payoff. I know that this has been said maybe 10 times, at least. But TikTok has done more harm than it could ever do good. In its wildest dreams, misguided teenagers on TikTok genuinely scare me, cause they are the future. Few examples: Tide Pod Challenge, Devious Licks, that whole cute killer, the one where you kick out someone's feet mid-jump, the Momo Challenge, and I could go on for quite a bit longer. And what scares me the most is that they are around my age. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. Please don't normalize working yourself to death thinking that work hard equals success. Success depends on a lot of things, not just the amount of effort and work you put into something. This is something I still have to remind myself from time to time when I think I'm not a successful person after literally doing hours of work with very little results. People are allowed to make their own choices on risks they want to take that might not be good for them personally. A personal decision that doesn't impact others is theirs to make, not yours to take from them. This is why in some places you can consume cannabis at home, but you can't drive high. Your personal choice to get high does not mean you get to endanger others, but you should get to make that choice for yourself on if you want to be high or not. Kids notice stuff about the adult world around them. If you don't teach them explicitly about it, you're leaving them to learn from whatever random source they stumble across. Like random folks on social media, who may or may not have values that you want your kids to adopt. It's totally appropriate to talk about race, gender, and sex to kids from the beginning, providing age-appropriate information at every stage. I'm the mom in a multiracial family and have taken many parenting classes about these issues, and sociologists and psychologists agree that ignoring important issues is just abdicating your responsibility, not trying to pick fights. And I appreciate that people have their right to raise their kids in their own way. But for my family and my students, I feel strongly about this. Gig work, drop shipping, all this stuff. Mobile phones without an SD card slot to force you to buy expensive storage space when you could easily integrate half a terabyte into modern phones via SD card. Mobile phones with a glued case so you cannot simply remove and change batteries. It's bullshit that they only do it for us to make it flatter. It's bullshit that they do it for waterproof safety reasons, cause considering most phones are not waterproof either way. They just want us to buy new phones every 2-3 years. People using the word roguelike for anything with procedural generation and permit. I hate saying this, but it was so much better when people just didn't know that word existed. People slap on that label nowadays like the IRL community doesn't still exist and make games. Just make a new word for it, please. Roguelite is too confusing for anyone new. Filming people while on drugs, like after getting their wisdom teeth removed or just getting out of surgery. I know that when I got off the drugs, if I found out that someone had filmed me, I would be infuriated. I have never found those videos funny and it honestly disgusts me. Luckily this has never happened to me and I never got wisdom teeth, but even the thought of it angers me. Gender reveal parties. First of all, gender is a social construct. Sex is the biological anatomy of the child, so you're having a sex reveal party, not gender. Also, who cares? Like, why do we need to have a party? You're having a shower. I'm going to have to go to like 18 birthday parties for this kid. Why do I need to go to one more party so you can have cool leg pics? There, I said it. I feel better now. Thanks for asking. Cryptocurrency. All of it. It's useless as a day-to-day currency. In effect, it's a commodity, failing one of its primary goals. It causes long cycles of graphics card shortages and sky-high prices. There have been numerous instances of exchanges hacked or just lost hundreds of millions in crypto. A dozen this year alone. Crypto uses more electricity than several countries, a colossal waste of resources. What I'd really like to thank it for, though, is enabling the proliferation of ransomware by giving them a global extortion payment system to make it easy to turn into an international business model, fucking over countless companies and individuals. Fuck crypto. Trashing the name Karen. It really is my name, and it's gotten to the point where it gets depressing to scroll through anything online when you keep finding your name tossed out as an insult. Ironically, they're often used in posts where people are decrying someone's bullying behavior, but people don't see that making fun of the name is a form of online bullying that actually does affect some people. New jeans that come with holes and wear marks. Lifted trucks. New country music and Hank Williams, Jr. His dad and son rock though. Wearing peace signs as a fashion statement. People looking at phones while they walk in crowds. ABBA and Maroon 5. COVID and climate change denying snowflakes. Leaf blowers. Manicured lawns in dry climates. And speaking of lawns, get the F off the one I used to have. Yes, in fact I am an old man. Glorifying slaving away at work, or the best you can be as a person is when you work as much as possible. Obviously people have to work for society to exist, but there's a line where you cross that goes from doing what needs to be done, to doing as much as the physically possible because societal norms say that's desirable, even when you don't get much reward or extra pay from the extra work. I just hate the idea of living to work as the main and only thing people do. Unless you love it, of course. I'm not focusing on those people. It's the ones who only value you by how many hours a week you worked, or how hard your work was, like some kind of competition to see whose work is the most difficult, or to glorify having to work multiple jobs, and 60-80 hours a week to just get by, leaving you no free time for any other part of life. We as a society should be trying to find ways to reduce the workload, not glorify its increase. We went from hunter-gatherer tribes working all day long to just barely get enough food, to learning to make farms. With farms we didn't have to leave the home area, and could make more food than anyone in the tribe needed. So lots more free time started to exist. The Greeks and Romans had enough free time that they developed philosophy. Having the freedom to do nothing, but think or be creative is a valuable aspect of humanity. We need that balance. Why today we stop trying to invent ways to work less, to automate, to optimize, just like we did from hunting to farming. Why aren't we building tools to make our lives easier? I know some people are, but why it isn't valued in society I don't fully understand. I do get the whole losing jobs and income issue associated with it. Policies and systems will have to also change to accommodate having less work for everyone to do. I just feel like regardless of the complexity of making it a reality, it should at least be the goal everyone wants to achieve.